On today's episode of the Mark Titus Show, the college basketball preseason is officially here. Ask me how I know. It's because we have the preseason AP poll, and I have some thoughts. These dumb that are voting on this thing, I'm going to rip them I'm kidding. I'm not going to rip this. But I do have some thoughts. Kansas is your number one team in the country, as expected. First thing that jumped out to me, 5 of the top 11 teams in the country, which is not an arbitrary number at all. That's a pretty natural cutoff. You hear about the top 11 pretty frequently. 5 of the top 11, almost half of the top 11 teams in the preseason AP poll will be taking part in the Maui Invitational. That's going to be freaking awesome. 3 of the top 5 will be out there. I'm fired up for that. Also, FAU in the top 10, the Barstool Invitational, Florida Atlantic Owls. We're going to have a top 10 team playing in the Barstool Invitational. I'm going to talk about the AP preseason poll a little bit because it's mid-October, and that's what you do, man. You get the preseason poll. You get numbers next to teams. Are you kidding me? That is content, baby. We're done with the offseason bullshit. The preseason is here. But the AP poll is not the only thing not the only rankings that were released. We also got, I saw Ken Pom put out his preseason rankings, and also Evan Miyakawa put out his preseason rankings, and Evan Miyakawa will join us on the show to talk about that. If you don't know who Evan Miyakawa is, you need to change that now. He runs evanmiya.com. It is a statistical model, much like your Ken Palms, much like there are a lot of them out there in college basketball, but Evans is my favorite because he always has Ohio State ranked higher than everyone else, and for that reason alone, I freaking love him. But also, he's an awesome dude, and as you'll see with the interview with him, he's a guy who loves what he does and is great at what he does, but he's also a normal dude and easy to talk to, and I think that's pretty cool because stereotype about these stats guys, a little dorky, not exactly the best thing. Evan's not that case. It was fun talking to him about the world of statistics and college basketball and why college basketball is so analytic friendly, which feels a little counterintuitive to me, but then he explained to me why that is, and I was like, all right, Evan, great point. So Evan Miyakawa joined the show for a while, but we're going to talk about the AP poll. We're going to talk to Evan Miyakawa. Also going to do a little secret scrimmage time. That's how you know my juices are flowing, man. I'm so excited. College basketball is almost back. I want to talk about some of these secret scrimmages going on. Jaden Epps has jumped out to a big lead in my National Player of the Year race. He is number 1 on the big board right now. We'll talk about that also. So all that coming up. Please enjoy. All right, AP poll is out. I got to crack my knuckles a little bit. We're back. I'm monologuing to start the show. That's how you know we're back. If you're hearing me monologue to start the show, you know it's basketball time, baby, because I got some thoughts, and I'm ready to rip them off. All right, so first thing that jumps out to me, we got Kansas number 1, Duke number 2, Purdue 3, Michigan State 4, Marquette 5. Is this going to be a new segment on the show where I just read the AP poll? Maybe. I don't know. First thing that jumps out to me is that Kansas being number 1, not a surprise. I've been saying it all offseason that I expected Kansas to be number 1 in the preseason poll. This is not surprising in the slightest. None of this is really surprising, I should say. Like, looking at the top 10, I want to pretend like I disagree heavily. I'm okay with most of it. I'm not really surprised. The one thing that is of note, though, is that Kansas was number 1 by a lot. 46 first place votes. Duke got 11. Purdue only got 3. Michigan State got 1. And then UConn, your defending national champion, actually got 2, even though they're 6th. And Marquette's 5th, and they got none. If I'm splitting hairs, and of course I am, because it's a preseason AP poll, and what is my function as a talking head in college basketball? If I'm just going to nod along and be like, looks good to me, let's push it along. I would have had Purdue number 1. I would have. Purdue is, to me, I don't expect Purdue to win the national championship, and I guess that's like a philosophical question when it comes to the AP poll, is who is voting on who they think the second, and when November hits and we're playing basketball, who the best team in the country will be at that exact moment, which is kind of how I view the preseason poll, is that I think this is the team that right now is the best. I think right this second they're probably the best, whereas these other teams have more potential. But if you're voting on it as like, these are the teams that I think are going to win the national championship, that's a different discussion. So like that's where, I don't know, it becomes a little murky. I think Purdue right this second is probably the best team in college basketball. In fact, like if I should just say they are. I think they are. I think Purdue is going to start out very hot this season. I think if you've been following the show in the offseason, I've kind of laid that out pretty clearly. Like I know they lost to Fairleigh Dickinson. I see that as more of an anomaly. I don't think, I'm not hand waving away and say it didn't happen, but I saw all last season that Purdue was trending towards a loss in the NCAA tournament that was like that. I would have thought it was going to happen in the Sweet 16. It didn't happen in the first round. But the big takeaway point of like, wow, Purdue's guards kind of stunk in the NCAA tournament. That was not shocking to me at all. That was exactly what I expected to have happen in the tournament. So taking all of that into account, when you look at the totality of the season last year, Purdue spent most of the season ranked number 1. They were very, very good. Now the dam started to crack a little bit. I think like it cracked big time when Hood Schifino went to West Lafayette and just dragged his nuts all over Purdue and Zach Edey on his soft hedges and I think playing Edey playing the drop coverage and Hood Schifino just dicing him up in the mid-range game. I think like the cracks started really showing for Purdue, and I think like a national title was, most reasonable Purdue fans knew they weren't going to win the national title last year, even though they were number 1 seed and they were very good and had the National Player of the Year. All of that is to say, I think Purdue bringing back basically the entire team. You're adding Miles Colvin, who's going to bring some athleticism. I think they're going to start the season, I guess, like not where they left off, but they're going to be just like they're going to be the closest to midseason form. They're the one team in college basketball that I know exactly what I'm getting. I can close my eyes right now. I can picture this particular Purdue basketball team in January, and they're going to be good. I know they're going to be good. I know they're going to be good in November. I know they're going to be good in January. How good they're going to be, time will tell. They have under Painter through the years, Purdue does seem to run out of gas. And I'm not just talking about the NCAA tournament. I'm just talking about the totality of the season. But with that in mind, I think when the season starts, the Purdue Boilermakers are the best team in college basketball. So I would have voted them number 1. Now, having said all that, the potential with Kansas and Duke is absurd. Kansas, I talked with Fanta about it a little bit. Like I'm a little bit more in wait and see mode with Kansas. I think Duke splits the difference between Kansas and Purdue in terms of like, we know what we're getting back, but also they have an insane amount of potential. Because Duke brings a lot of dudes back, Filipowski and Proctor and Roach and Mark Mitchell. They were a team that wasn't that great for most of the season. They started putting it together late in the year. Tennessee beats them in the tournament in one of the most disgusting basketball games I've ever watched. But the ceiling for Duke is probably higher than Purdue, but at the same time, I kind of know what I'm getting out of Duke. We're going to see how much they'll miss Derek Lively. I thought he was obviously a great defender for Duke and a great rim protector. But I think Duke is kind of splitting the difference. And then Kansas, to me, there's a lot more uncertainty around Kansas than I think Kansas fans want to admit, which is not to say that I think Kansas is like on the bubble or that Kansas is not going to – like Kansas is going to be a top 5 team all season. I am very comfortable saying that. I think Kansas is going to be fucking awesome. But to be the overwhelming number 1 team, I think you're if you're voting that way, you're doing that because you believe in their potential and you believe in Hunter Dickinson gelling with these guys, and you believe that the loss of Jalen Wilson and Grady Dick, who could create something out of nothing offensively for them, and gave them dynamic wings that could score the basketball. I kind of want to see what it's going to look like to replace those guys. I like the roster. I like DeJuan Harris. I like KJ. McCuller's a great defender. I like KJ Adams. They got dudes. They very much got dudes. I want to see what it all looks like together first. So if I was voting, I actually would have flipped the top 3. I would have done Purdue 1, Duke 2, and Kansas 3 because I'm more inclined to lean towards like this is what I know I'm getting early on. But I also say, like, Kansas does have an insane ceiling. Like, if all these guys play as well as they're capable of playing, and they can, and we get back to like old school Bill Self basketball, playing through the low post and relying on the big man, which is I think what is obviously going to happen with Hunter Dickinson being on the team now, because he kind of got away from that a little bit. But that was the Bill Self model forever has been great point guard, great big man. Let them do their thing, and away we go. And then he wins a national championship with Agbaji and Christian Brown, just like throwing athletic wings out there and letting them wreak havoc. Runs it back last year with Jalen Wilson and Grady Dick, like kind of the same. They're kind of like the diet version of Agbaji and Christian Brown. I think we're getting back to old school Bill Self philosophies of like My point guard and my big man are the two most important players. DeJuan Harris and Hunter Dickinson are going to run the offense. And I think they're going to be fucking awesome. I want to see it first. That's all. So that's probably how I would have the top 3. Michigan State, though, at 4. Boy, TJ, Cohen Carr, you see these dunks?
Yeah, we talked about this off air, but that definitely helped Michigan State's
oh
AP
my
poll
God.
stock. That probably bumped them up from around 9 or 10.
And what's funny is I don't even know how many minutes Cohen Carr is going to get. He's going to play. Like, I don't mean to say he's going to play 3 minutes a game.
He's got to play now. You got to play the guy that can dunk from the free throw line.
He's definitely going to play, but like the selling point of Michigan State is that they brought back like their whole team basically.
Yeah.
So he's not going to start, or maybe he will. I don't know. I don't even know anymore. Like I said.
That's such like a loss situation though, because like if you're a Michigan State fan, if they're underperforming early in the season, they're just going to be like, well, why don't we put the guy that can dunk from the free throw line?
Yeah.
Like that's like that clip was great, but that's going to be instantly the first excuse that Michigan State fans like. Well, once we put this kid in, he can dunk from the free throw line, so we'll probably win every game.
Remind me of yeah, he's not going to start, right? No, it's Hogard and Will. Maybe he will start. He's not going to start. He's not going to start.
It's gonna
I'm
be
such an
like,
idiot, dude.
Is it like a Mac McClung situation where they have to like call him up to the big boy squad for a little bit because he won the dunk contest? Like,
I'm so stupid.
What?
Like he's not going to start.
Yeah.
But like I've seen this. I've never watched Cohen Carr play.
No.
Like I'm very transparent about that. Like if you're new to my show and you're getting into college basketball and you're like, I want to check out I was told this is the guy who does college basketball for Barstool. I do. By the way, welcome. But I will be honest, and I'll tell you like the freshmen of who I've seen and who I have and all that sort of thing. I've never seen Cohen Carr play basketball. I've watched him dunk a basketball like 4 times, and I'm like, this guy's got to start for me.
He's got to start for somebody.
It's like so antithetical to how Tom Izzo runs his program.
Yeah.
He never starts freshmen really, unless you're like just fucking insane. But I've seen enough from Cohen Carr to be like, this kid's got to start, right?
Can he enter the transfer portal and start for another team before the season starts? Is it too late for that? What are the rules?
Yeah, because they lost Joey Hauser. That's the one starter that they lost. But then they bring back 4 starters, and like I don't.
But
what if he sucks? What if he sucks at basketball, but he
just has no shooting ability?
We had a guy like that at Ohio State. Eric Wallace is his name. I think he's playing professional rugby, or he was. Maybe he's retired now. Freak athlete, like the most insane athlete I've ever seen in my life. He just an disgusting athlete. When he would shoot jump shots, he could be 10 feet short or 10 feet long or anything in between. Like he had the worst touch, could not dribble it, like would look down at his feet when he was dribbling a basketball. Terrible court vision, would throw passes like 5 seconds after a guy would be open, you know? Like a guy would cut, be open, he'd be like, oh, damn, okay, yeah, let me throw it, hold on, give me a second. And then throw it right to the other team. He was so bad that when we would scrimmage in practices, whenever there were stakes in the practices and it was like 5-on-5 and like the loser has to run or the loser has to, you know, have some sort of punishment, the team that he was on would kick him off the team and have me play for him. They'd be like, oh shit, like this is a real script, like there are stakes to this. Eric, get out of it. Titus, you're in. And I remember laughing like, holy shit. I remember just looking at Eric like, you know how bad you have to be for me to take your spot in a scrimmage?
This person was on the Ohio State basketball team?
Yes, he was.
How? Because
if you watched his highlight dunks, I'm telling you, this man was the most athletic fucking guy I have ever seen in my life. He in practice, he could do things dunking the basketball that would make your head spin. He was just so bad at basketball. Nice kid. Nice kid. Great guy. Good teammate. Pretty soft-spoken. Quiet guy. Found out after the fact that, like, after his basketball career, he just went down to Australia, started playing, like, Australian rules football. I don't know if it was rugby or Australian rules football, which, by the way, what's the difference? He's, like, a legend. He was, like, one of the best, or that was my understanding. He was, like, one of the best players in Australian rules football for a while. I need to do a Where Are They Now? But anyway, I mentioned him to say maybe Cohen Carr is that. Maybe Cohen Carr is just like a dude that can jump out of the gym but can't dribble a basketball or something. I don't know. But yeah, the AP poll, I don't know. I would probably, if I'm being completely honest, I'd have Miami at 11 instead of 13. I felt like they got hosed a little bit, back-to-back Elite Eights, right. Final Four last year. I'd have Kentucky's at 16 in the preseason AP poll. I don't have them. I can't put them below 15, honestly, in my poll, so I'd probably swap them in Texas A&M. A lot of SEC teams, though. Not surprised by that. The SEC suddenly getting good at basketball kind of pisses me off. It kind of does. I won't lie. Just kind of like they just decided like 7 years ago. They're just like, you know what we should do? We should give a shit about basketball. And then suddenly they got good. But no, man, I'm fired up. I'm fired up to see all these teams with numbers next to them. And I was shocked when the poll came out that I pretty much agreed. I kept like waiting for the one that jumped out to me, and I was expecting it to be Florida Atlantic, but Florida Atlantic at 10 feels right. I don't think they should be higher. I don't think they should be lower. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at, TJ. For the most part, I don't really have any problems. I would have, for the record, though, put Purdue at number 1, but I also say that saying that I don't expect Purdue to win the national championship. I would put them at 1 based on when the season starts. I think Purdue is going to win the Maui Invitational. I think they should be the favorites to win the Maui Invitational in an absolutely loaded field. But Kansas, that's your true number 1. I mean, like, if we're being completely honest, whoever wins Maui Invitational is getting the Maui bump, and there's your number 1 team. So we should almost like not even put out the poll yet. We should just wait until after Thanksgiving. We get a Maui Invitational champion. There's your number 1 team. And honestly, I'm putting whoever gets second in the Maui Invitational. You're my number 2 team. So enough about that. Let's talk to a guy who uses his brain to come up with actually uses his computer. How does that work? Does he use his brain, or does he? If your brain builds the computer, is it still your brain? I don't know. Great question. But Evan Miyakawa does great work. I can't recommend checking out his website enough if you're into college hoops. Talk to him about all sorts of things, college basketball and statistics and analytics and all that sort of stuff. So here he is, Evan Miyakawa. All right, Evan Miyakawa is here. He's the proprietor of evanmiya.com. He is also, the AP poll just released. We got the preseason poll. He released his preseason rankings on Friday. Evan, I have been on record for a very long time as saying that I appreciate whatever algorithm puts the Buckeyes the highest. That's, I don't like to play favorites. I just like to go to all these different algorithms, figure out who's got the Buckeyes the highest. More often than not, you do have my Buckeyes higher than everyone else. You got us at 25 in the preseason. I'm very fired up about that. I guess the first question, though, is the obvious one that a lot of people like me that don't fully understand how these sorts of things work is how can we have preseason analytics when there's, like, from my point of view, no data yet?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough challenge. I think you always have to have a little bit of a disclaimer with any preseason metric that basically says subject to change very quickly, because there's so much uncertainty there for sure.
How much of your professional life do you spend explaining to people that you're not biased, or like that this is that, like, you had this team lower, but like you didn't mean anything by it. It was just like this is an algorithm. This is a computer. This isn't me doing this.
I actually love it. I can hide behind my computer and say that it wasn't my fault. If someone says your ranking list is terrible, I can say I didn't choose this. The computer chose this, so my hands are off. And I do think it's kind of fun to have your own model that you believe in and still have data points that you disagree with, because when you have data points for 350 plus teams, and in my case, I do player metrics for over 5,000 players, there's always going to be some that are wrong.
Yeah.
So that's always just a thing.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, how often do you find yourself plugging in the stats or whatever, and then it spits something out, and you look at it and scratch your head, and you're like, "Uh-oh, did I really just say that Penn State's the 3rd best team in the Big Ten? Uh-oh." Like, do you do that often, or do you just let it ride?
It happens pretty frequently. You have to find a balance between, once you feel good about, say, 80-90% of it, then you can let the few outliers kind of be there as it will, because you kind of trust the process with most of it. Example this year is I have Miami, a Final Four team from last year, at 49th, which they're in the preseason top 25 poll. I actually do have some reasoning for why I think that's the case. But in general, I can look at data points like that and say, I think they're probably going to be better than the 49th team. There's situations like that. I do think, though, it's helpful when you see a trend, like not just one data point, but, oh, wow, my model it seems to be really biased towards this certain type of player, or, there's a star NBA talent who's ranked super low. I do often investigate that, go into the model, compare players, and I typically leave that thinking more reassured as to why it says that's the case. But sometimes I do tweak some stuff to you have to have, in order to have some credibility, people have to, in general, agree with certain things, because most people who are a very casual sports audience, they'll go look at it, they have a specific thing they're looking for, and if they don't like it, they just discredit the whole thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Boy, do I. Which kind of brings me to a larger discussion I wanted to have with you. Is I'm not as number illiterate as I play on television, I should say. Like I was a declared math major at Ohio State for a year. Now, the caveat to that is I didn't last that long, and I was like, fuck, this is not for me. But I play it up as a guy who doesn't really fully understand this. So I can sort of speak the language, but at the same time, I do find myself, as I get older, Evan, I become more of a meathead. I become more of like I said it at the top. Like I log onto your site, I see where Ohio State is, I nod along, and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good. And then I nod, and then I'm happy with what I found. How would you explain what it is exactly you're doing? Like without explaining how the sausage is made too much and getting into the secret sauce a little bit, but like for idiots out there, because I have a lot of them that watch the show and listen to the show. How would you explain what it is you're doing and how you go about doing what your process is?
The main reason why I do what I do is to try and measure the things in a number sense that people are most interested in. Like, I think my team is good, but the question is how good? Can we actually put an objective number to it? And two, doing it in a way that utilizes all of the data that we have in as accurate and objective a way as possible. And so in general, there are going to always be data points like this team is ranked too high, this team is ranked too low. But on aggregate, we can learn things from the data that just as a college basketball viewer, even someone who's super knowledgeable or has played the sport, you only have such a limited vision of what's going on, not just with your team, but with all the teams, with all the players. And there's a lot of power to leverage in the data that's out there to tell us more about, okay, maybe we as a college basketball community are slightly overrating this team, or we're slightly underrating this player, or maybe this coaching staff is underutilizing this player. The data can really help us get those sorts of insights. Ultimately, I never preach it as the data tells the truth and everyone who disagrees with it is wrong, because that's just not the case. The best stance is to combine your own expert knowledge or your couch fandom with some of these objective numbers and kind of use them together to leverage that power.
Yeah, so you don't see it as a war between you and the eye test people. You see it as like you're just trying to offer another color on the palette to paint the picture, so to speak.
Absolutely. For example, I do not think that my computer should be able to make a better preseason poll than the AP poll, because the AP voters have the ability to look at objective data measures like my own and use that as an input to their actual like expert ranking, right? So mine should never be better than like a consensus group of humans, or even the committee who selects the teams to go to March. But hopefully what I'm doing can provide them more nuance and detail to make better, more informed takes, essentially.
Interesting. Yeah, that's I like that you say that, because I do like the data. I like, but I don't know. I think we're all the same. Do you find yourself doing that as well? Like, when you consume basketball, do you enjoy it as an art? I guess like this would be, stick with me here. I think there are like two different types of brains, how they watch sports, and it feels like some people watch it as like a science, some people watch it as an art. And I feel like the science people are the ones that like want to solve it and come up with the algorithms like you're doing. But also, do you still appreciate the art is my question. Do you have the capability to watch basketball and still be like, numbers be damned, that play was awesome, or like, I know that this guy's an inefficient scorer, but holy shit, like the way he moves his body like speaks to me as a basketball fan. Do you still watch it in that way?
Yeah, the more my career has moved down the sports analytics path, I think the fact that I have all of these numbers that I can look back and say like, oh, I'm watching these two teams play, how do I rate them, etc., I think in general widens my appreciation for the sport as a whole, because I'm interested in all of the stuff that's going on. However, when I talk about the teams that I'm actually a homer for and I'm watching them on television, I could care less what the metrics say.
Yeah.
And I will typically rely on them actually in the same way that most other people do, which is saying, I think this player should play more. My metrics back me up. Why are you not playing him, coach?
Yeah.
You know, so I do turn very much into more of just a passionate fan who I feel like has very strong, and in my case, very truthful biases. You know what I mean?
So what are your biases? Disclose them.
I guess
Disclose
what I just
them.
mean in general. I guess what I just mean in general is if I think a player's good and then my super complicated model also thinks he's good, then he really should be good. And the coach is making the wrong decision. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't realize until you told me this right before we sat down to do the interview that you and I grew up like right next to each other in Indiana. I don't know how this happened, how I didn't realize this. You're from Zionsville, home of Brad Stevens, by the way. Do you how much time do you spend thinking about Brad? Brad Stevens is my Roman Empire. You know that meme that was like, how much do you guys think about the Roman Empire? That's me with Brad Stevens. What about you?
I remember. So I grew up and Butler Bulldogs basketball is still my favorite sport team to follow across all sports. And I remember where I was when I found out that Brad Stevens was leaving. Like, I remember that moment. One of my most foundational moments, maybe my most foundational moment as a sports fan, was my dad and I went to Hinkle Fieldhouse to watch the national semifinal game against Michigan State with all of the other Butler fans. Mm-hmm. So we're watching it on the big screen. They win in a super low scoring game. Gordon Hayward runs away with the ball. Time expires. And then my dad turns to me and he says, "Why don't we go downtown and see if we can get tickets to the final?" So we drive downtown and we find an elderly Michigan State couple who is leaving the game, and they sold us their tickets to the title game against Duke for $50 a piece.
What?
And so my dad and I got to go to that game, and of course that game will live in history.
Yeah.
An amazing moment for me as a kid, and that's pretty much how college basketball became my number one sport.
Yeah. How did you then decide? I mean, you're obviously a very bright guy. You got your doctorate. You know all these statistics and all that sort of thing. How do you converge the two? How did you come to make this be a path you wanted to go down?
Yeah, so I got my PhD in statistics from Baylor, and I have always kind of had a natural leaning towards applying numbers and data to sports because I'm just a huge sports fan. And both my parents got their master's degrees in statistics and are sports fans, so that I kind of got trained to like, hey, math is cool, let's apply it to sports kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so once I started doing grad school, kind of my natural leaning was to apply stuff that I was learning to sports. And because college basketball is my favorite sport, and I think the challenge that college basketball presents in terms of figuring out who's good and who's not is harder than maybe any other major American sport, because we have over 350 teams and we have a biased group of humans in a room deciding who goes to the most important tournament on earth. So
and you know they're not watching.
It's
it's a biased group that is also, by the nature of the sport, with that many teams, we're not watching all the teams. So that is a pretty obvious flaw in the system as well. It's like there's no way. I mean, I'm saying this very transparently. I do not watch every team in a season. So yeah, to that point, it is kind of wild to think about.
Yeah, so I love the unique challenge that college basketball provides because of just how much turnover there is from roster from year to year, how many teams there are, and the fact that we ultimately don't have an objective way like wins and losses of deciding who gets the playoffs. It's based on, this committee of people. So because of that, I'm really drawn to the challenge of trying to use statistical models to rank teams, rank players, and try to do that. So that was just a natural first thing for me. So I just started putting together stuff that I was learning in grad school, throwing it at data on teams and saying, here's my ranking list. Does this look good or not? And then I just kind of took off from there and turned it into a website.
Yeah, that's awesome. What is it, would you say, other than what you just mentioned, that there's a huge number of teams? Like, do you think there's anything else inherent about college basketball that makes it so that makes the fan base and the people who obsess over college basketball so willing to entertain analytics? I don't know how to say it. Like, I feel like other than baseball, college basketball is the sport that welcomes in it. Like, you can, a guy like me that talks about the sport for a living, I can sit down and mention your website or KenPom or whatever else, and that's welcome. Like, people listening love that, and they love that. And I find that when I step back and think about it, I find it a little surprising because I think it's not just basketball. It's like college basketball. I don't think NBA people are quite to this level with analytics. And college, like stereotypically, I would say college basketball fans, I would have guessed, are more of the eye test, meathead. I just like think about like my experience growing up in Indiana. We both probably know all sorts of people that like, huh? What's that number? Hell with that. I'll tell you this. He can play ball for me, and and that's kind of how they approach. That's my stereotypical college basketball fan. So to wake up in 2023 and see a world where like analytics are thriving in the sport, do you think there's something inherent about that, about the sport?
I do. I think it's all to do with March Madness. I think it's the fact that we have a tournament of 68 teams, and the way that we decide who those, for the most part, most of those 68 teams should be, and all of them, how they're seeded, is based on trying to combine all of this information on who's good and who's not when you have over 350 teams, but each team only plays like 25, 30 teams in a season.
Yeah.
So because of that, we have become used to, as fans, getting used to seeing numbers used or quadrant systems or KenPom as a way of saying, okay, I think my team's good, but how good? I'm going to look at this metric, and this is a ballpark for where I think they're going to end up in the tournament. So I think people have gotten conditioned over the years because they have to frequently reference metrics as a way of a ballpark estimate of where your team's going to be slotted into March Madness.
What is your relationship like with KenPom? Is there a rivalry?
Ken and I talk. Yeah, Ken and I talk. We've been talking for probably over a year now, off and on. I think he's great. I so much respect for him, and just the fact that I feel like, he is the pioneer of college basketball analytics, and he's been around for much longer than a lot of the newer people like myself. So I think what he's done, I don't know where the sport would be in terms of this love and appreciation for data analytics if not for him. So super appreciative of his work.
I mean, that's a very respectful answer, but I don't think it's what anybody wanted to hear. We were hoping that like
I'm not gonna make any negative comments about someone else who's in a very similar space to me, because all of the negative things I could say about him, if there were any, you could probably say the exact same about the same kind of thing that I do. So.
Yeah, exactly. I know. It's dang, I hate that though. I like rivalries. I like picking sides. I'm a Evan guy, but I also I do like KenPom though. I told you I just pick whoever likes Ohio State more. Whichever algorithm has Ohio State higher, I'm all for it. All right, let's go through your preseason rankings right now, and I want to talk to you just about. I want to talk to not the algorithm. I want to talk to Evan Miyakawa, the man. What right now from your rankings, and I'll give people a frame of reference. You can go to evanmia.com and see it for yourself. But Purdue's 1, Tennessee's 2, Houston 3, Duke 4, UConn 5, Creighton 6, Kansas 7, Gonzaga 8, Marquette 9, and Texas 10. That's your top 10. What in your top 10 are you like, I wish I could like put my thumb on the scale a little bit and put this team here, because I think me personally, I like this team, or I don't like this team, whatever else?
I don't necessarily think I would move any of those teams because there's no data to support that I'm wrong yet. You know what I mean?
Spoken like a stat nerd.
Yeah, I think the most surprising one is probably Tennessee at 2. They're still definitely a top 10 team, I think most people would say, but something that my system measures more heavily than most people will is defensive impact. And they had such a strong defense last year, and I think that's going to be a big factor for them as well this year. And when you look at some of my player projections for them, their style of play last year was not pretty, but it was really effective.
Yeah.
And I also do think that there is a bias in the media towards teams that have, these recurring March Madness storylines in terms of over or underperforming. So I think Rick Barnes is under that as well, but I don't take that into account at all when I'm putting these things together, because you can have a Virginia who loses to a 16 seed and then wins 6 games the next year to win the whole thing. So I don't think that's sticky.
Arguing over preseason polls is stupid, obviously, but what else are we gonna do? This is how the content machine works. But I do find that fascinating that it does feel like so much weight is put into the NCAA tournament. And it should be, I think, like I go back and forth with like the emotional part of it of like, yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. That is what matters most. But at the same time, I would have Purdue, if I was an AP voter, I would have voted Purdue to be number 1 going into the season. And I'm fully aware of what happened in the NCAA tournament, but I feel like they're the one thing of all the teams in the country, I know exactly what I'm going to get out of Purdue this year. And they were number 1 for most of last year. They're going to be very, very good. I assume like your model reflects that as well, that you're like not the Fairleigh Dickinson game is more of a blip than like, the catastrophic thing that I think led to Purdue being third, which isn't bad, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, Purdue, that loss to FDU is a data point, but I think when you talk to most people, they pretend that game happened 5 games in a row. Like Purdue lost 5 times in a row to Fairleigh Dickinson. Yeah. That's how much weight it carries for people. So, yeah, I think Purdue's going to be great again. And I think the fact that they have almost all of their players returning, they have the best player in college basketball in Zach Edey, who I have as my preseason #1 best player. And then you have a group of freshmen turning sophomores in like Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer, who, yeah, they looked a little bit scared under the big lights last year, but that was in their freshman season. There was a lot of pressure on them. They should take a big step forward. And all of the role guys behind those players, they know exactly what they're doing. They have a really well-oiled system, and I think they play really well against good competition.
Let's just stick in the Big Ten. Michigan State, you have 14. I keep saying you. I am fully aware that it's not you, but you know your model, I should say. Michigan State at 14th. Can you shed some light onto why that might be? Because I feel like Michigan State has, if the preseason poll was like 3 months from now and there were still no games played and we still just like let the offseason content machine work, I feel like Michigan State could eventually become the preseason #1 team, that there's just like so much juice. I think Cohen Carr, just like more videos of Cohen Carr dunking would just like, if we just delayed the process, people would vote Michigan State #1. What is it, do you suppose, that has, I mean, you have, the model says Illinois at 13 and Michigan State 14. That feels a little bit surprising as a Big Ten basketball fan. Can you shed some light on why you think that might be happening?
Yeah, for sure. From the model perspective, a lot of what goes into these preseason projections is trying to get an estimate of how good each team's roster is going to be. And one of the players for Michigan State that my model is lower on than most is Tyson Walker, who's outside the top 100 players in the preseason, when a lot of people might have him as like a top 20 player and one of the best guards in the country. I still think he's really good, but if you were to slot him in that top 20 range, that would massively boost their team's projection. So that's probably part of why they're lower there. Yeah. I think they're probably better than 14th, but again, like I said, there's no data to say that I'm wrong yet, so we'll see.
There's no data that says you're wrong. Speaking of the player rankings, I want to talk to you about that a little bit. We've gone 5 straight years now. The National Player of the Year has been a big, or a non-guard, I should say, depending on how you want to define some of these guys, but just not a guy who's a traditional guard. The National Player of the Year is back at Purdue. It's Zach Edey. I feel like he's the overwhelming favorite. You have him at #1 on your player rankings. It gets a little surprising. So Klingon at 2 makes a ton of sense in that he's a very talented player. But I just think with Hunter Dickinson out there and Ryan Kalkbrenner at Creighton, and there's some other guys out there that are more surefire things. Anyway, the list of guys that you have going into the preseason, 8 out of the 10, I think. Let me look at this. We have Jalen House and Zakai Ziegler, who's got the knee injury. He probably won't even play, really. And DeAndre Williams. Yeah, I count 8 out of the 10 guys are big guys. So my question to you is, do you think that this era we're in where big guys are dominant and all of that, is that is the model, I keep using putting the thumb on the scale, is there something inherent about do we overvalue rebounds? Is it maybe we shouldn't? I think it's weird that when you talk to people about what wins in March, they'll tell you guard play, but then when you talk about the best players coming into every single season and who's going to win National Player of the Year, it's always the big guys. How do you reconcile those two things?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things going along. First of all, I do think because of the NIL era that we're in and the fact that the NBA is leaning away from bigs who aren't super athletic Victor Wembanyama type guys, right?
Yeah.
Who can shoot threes and do all the stuff. There's just way more incentive for these big guys to continue to play multiple years when in the past they would go to the NBA. And in college, they just have such a physical advantage. If you look before the last 2 years at the players who finished at the top of the leaderboard in my player metric Bayesian performance rating, it was pretty across the board, guards, forwards, centers. And then the last 2 years, it's been almost primarily big men because there's just way more of them returning to the sport. And we've had a lack of really good, prolific, steal the show type guards, especially when we get into March. So I think it's honestly even we have these big guys returning and they should be good players, but we also just have a little bit of a lack of really elite guards. I mean, you look at the guys this year, like Tyler Kolek from Marquette. He was awesome last year. Wade Taylor at Texas A&M, I love him, and I hope A&M is good for a lot of this year because I think a lot of people are going to love watching him play. But there's not a lot of guys that you can throw in that category this year who are, going to be potential first-team All-Americans, unlike other years that we've had.
Kolek's awesome. Wade Taylor's awesome. This isn't a slight on them, but also it's going to sound very much like a slight on them. If those are the two best guards, which I don't necessarily, I don't know if those are the exact top two guys. I don't know. Proctor's going to be good and Jeremy, but anyway, point is, like, if those,
you're having to reach a little bit to find good ones, right?
Yeah. Like if those are the top, if that's like the top line guard that we have in the sport, it's like, man, we are
exactly.
So yeah, I think I'm with you. Like I find it fascinating. I think the eye test from the couch says the same thing that the analytics say, which is that it is a big men driven sport. I just wonder, is this is this a where we're headed as a sport? Is this going to continue to happen? I guess maybe it will with NIL and all that sort of thing. It's just so fascinating though, because like every single coach will tell you that like you're not gonna. I mean, this was the complaint about Purdue that I had all last year, and you mentioned it earlier, is that as great as Edey is, when March rolls around, the only chance Purdue has is if they get good guard play, and trusting two freshman guards that are not surefire NBA players, if they're going to play in the NBA at all ever, is not a great recipe. So it's just weird that like at a time where the big guys are dominant and it's a very much a big guy driven sport, at the end of the day, every single coach is like, we have to have guards to win in March or else we're screwed. And you have a program like Miami, who like doesn't really have Omier is like 6'7", and he's like their big man, and they've gone to back-to-back Elite Eights, and they're going to be very good this year. I just find the whole thing fascinating. So,
yeah, I agree with you there.
What else we got cooking up? Like, how often do you kick around? I remember when Tate and I would talk about the race to 69. You did we like commissioned some statistical work from you, and you spit out some great stuff. Did we end up giving you an award? I think we did. I think we gave you a Duffy, right, for excellence in journalism.
Yeah, I won the most coveted Duffy of all of them.
Yeah, that is true. That's the Duffys were started for excellence in journalism, and then you won maybe the last one. Maybe that was the last one.
I won the last one. Yeah, what an honor.
Dude, how about that? Also, did you kill the show? Maybe you're the reason that maybe we just went out on top. We gave you the Duffy for excellence in journalism. That was the end of the show.
I broke the system.
What else how much time do you spend like kicking around other ideas, and how much time are you like, I should build a model for this, and then you get halfway down the road and you're like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever done. I got to stop doing this.
Well, first of all, I don't have any dumb ideas. They're all great. No, if you could see the list of things that I want to add to my website, to my model, etc., it is like ridiculously long, and it'll probably take me like 4 years to do. So I'm always working on stuff. I've got a couple of things that I'm going to be kind of unveiling right before the season starts that I can't like speak about a ton, but I'm really excited about, that are going to be kind of some improvements to different features on the site, a new way of looking at team rankings, things like that. So I'm always cooking up stuff.
Do you in your private life use this in any way, shape, or form? I'm trying to think of an example. Like, how often are you like just watching your dog, and how like what corner of the room he goes to lay down, and like marking it down and being like, damn, he spends 84% of his time on this side of the room. And does your brain work that way, or are you able to turn it off?
Oh, I definitely can turn it off. I think there's some situations where it's just a little silly to be that sophisticated.
Yeah.
But, I think maybe a more apt example is I have this website that is super sophisticated and does all this really cool stuff for a very legit sport in college basketball. And I equally have another program that I run to tell me which teams in my adult rec soccer league are the best. So
there it is.
Of equal importance to me. Yeah.
There it is. I guess framed another way, do you think you're an annoying hang? Are you ever the guy that's like, well, statistically, how often do you say that in your life? Well, statistically, and everyone's like, shut, Evan, we get it, shut up.
I don't think I fall into that super often. I think I don't ever want to come across as like a annoying data nerd. So one of the things I'm really passionate about actually is my brain is thinking at a very technical level about these things all the time. But most of the people that I talk to outside of people that I work with really closely are not at that level. And yet I still really want to be able to communicate complex data-driven ideas in a way that's really understandable and attainable, because I think a lot of the things that I'm trying to do through this statistical rigorous framework is ultimately just kind of an extension of the way that we just think about life in general. Like, you walk into a situation, maybe it's you're at work and you think, do people like me at work? And then you collect data points. You have an interaction with a person here, you have a conversation here, someone gives you a high five, and then you start to like update what your conception of that is. You know, we do this kind of thing all the time, even if we're not calling it math. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that actually makes sense. So as we're on the dawn of a new season, is there anything you want the college basketball fans watching, listening to know about your model, just statistics in general? Is there a PSA that you would like to put out there before the season starts and emotions really start getting ramped up and people really start having takes? Just the floor is yours for now, as everyone's still relatively pretty calm.
I don't think people are calm. I think
they're never calm, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, you can ask the St. John's fans in my mentions. They're not happy with. I didn't quantify the Rick Pitino effect well, apparently. So we're already past the calm phase.
I love it. I love this sport. We're still 2 weeks away from playing games, and people are fired up about it. I think that's all I got for you, Evan. I really do. I very much do lean into being a dumb jock, but I'm on your side all the time. I'm on Kim Palm's side all the time. I find immense value in it, and I love your work, and especially, you keep the Buckeyes in good standing. I think we're going to be all right this year. I think we're going to be all right. Let's not get too carried away, though. Let's just leave it at 25. Let's not get us any higher. That was pissing me off, by the way. I know you don't have a rivalry with Kim Palm, but Kim Palm last year, like, just kept telling, we would lose every single game, Evan, and we'd like go up in Kim Palm, and I was going crazy being told that's like the worst. That's the thing that got me fired up the most for the stats guys was we would lose, but Ohio State would lose efficiently, and I would just like, that was my coping mechanism. I was like, well, we just went up like a couple spots in the efficiency ranking. We can't be that bad. And we were under 500. Oh my God, that was maddening last year. So, anyway, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for making time. Best of luck this year. We'll have to have you back on and talk through stuff as we get more data points and stuff starts fleshing itself out. We'll go to a Butler game too. You live in Santa Barbara though now, right?
I do, yeah. But I'm at least once a year back in Indianapolis for various things. I should be back like in the spring sometime. So,
well, I'm a Butler guy now. I got a Coach Mata there, and Diebler and Greg and the gang. So, yeah, I'm super jealous of that. By the way, I think I've told you that Santa Barbara is my favorite place on earth. I want to live there so badly. So, hopefully it'll happen someday. Thank you so much, Evan. Appreciate you making time. Best of luck this season, man.
Thank you.
Quick break to talk about our friends at Gametime. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to the next big event, whether you're going to a sporting event, you're going to a comedy show, say, you want to go to a concert. There's all sorts of things going on. This is a great time in the sports calendar. The equinox is almost upon us. That's what they call it, right? They call it the equinox when all four are going on at once. We almost got that going on. NBA is almost back. College basketball very close to being back. Hockey is underway. All sorts of stuff going on. A lot of things out there to keep you entertained, a lot of things you're going to want to go to. And if you decide you do want to go to these things, you got to use Gametime. And I'm going to tell you why. It's the last minute tickets for me. It's the I'm sitting at home. I live in a pretty cool city here in Chicago now. I'm going to be doing this all year. I don't know how much I care about the Blackhawks or not, but I tell you this much. When I'm sitting around and say Chief here in the office mentions that the Hawks are at home tonight, I'm going to be going to Gametime. I'm going to be getting a last-minute ticket, and I know I'm going to be getting a great deal because Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, even an hour after it starts. So if you're someone like me that doesn't even necessarily care that much about the hockey, you just want to be in the arena to get the vibe of the place, check out Gametime after the game's already started. You get a great deal on a ticket. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. With zone deals, you pick the section and Gametime picks the seats for an average of 18% savings. And the Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. That's incredible. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Titus for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the code Titus for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, thank you to Evan for making time to talk to us. I did not know that, TJ. This morning wake up to a DM from him. We said I reached out to him about doing an interview, and I followed his work for a while, and he just hits me blindside out of nowhere. He's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm from Zionsville." And I was like, "Why have you been keeping this from me?" And then I asked him right before we did the interview, and he's like, "Well, it never came up." So I guess I just gotta, like, every time I meet someone, I just gotta be like, "Are you from Zionsville?"
Yeah.
You got to tell me if you are. Yeah, it's a town right by Brownsburg. We're in the same conference. We used to play Zionsville all the time. And I knew he lived in California, so I didn't know where in the country this guy was from, and he's from right where I'm from. How about that? Yeah, go support Evan. It would mean a lot to me. Even if it's just like bookmarking his website, and you check in periodically. I really enjoy him. Like I said when I was setting up the interview before we tossed it to him, he's easy to talk to. He's a stat nerd that's easy to talk to, and I appreciate those guys because there are a lot of guys, and I'm not pointing the finger at any specific person, but there are a lot of stat nerds out there that like get angry with eye test guys and get angry with jocks like me, jocks like us, you watching and me, yeah, jocks like us. Yeah, but that was refreshing. It's refreshing to have a guy like him that's like, listen, man, I'm just one little small part in the bigger picture. I'm not trying to tell everybody I have the answers. So go support Evan. That would mean a lot to me, and I'm sure it would mean a lot to him as well. All right, you want to do the Rutgers recap?
Sure.
We should do that. Let's do that because you went to New Jersey, had a hell of a weekend.
I did. I returned
Tell us
home.
about it.
It was maybe the worst weather ever for a game that I've been to. Luckily, we were in the suites, not to brag. Shout out to the homie Mike Greengarden for hooking it up. But I don't know how much of that game you followed.
I followed a lot of it. I didn't watch any of it, but I was following.
I don't think most people were watching it when it was 24-6 going into the fourth quarter between two horrible teams. But we're back. That was a doomsday. We were tight rope walking a doomsday scenario, and somehow in like 7 minutes, Rutgers scored 3 times. People were hugging in the stands. We're back.
That's awesome.
It was insane.
Bowl eligibility still
On the line this weekend at Indiana.
at IU, yeah.
It's our last bad team that we play, so we would like to win it now.
Who'd you play in the West?
Iowa, Wisconsin. We're yet to play Iowa.
You're yet to play Iowa. Okay.
Northwestern.
Northwestern. You got to get that W. You already got it. You already did. All
First
right.
week.
Yeah.
But we're like, technically speaking, good. We have the best running back in the Big Ten, most running back yards in the Big Ten.
We're technically speaking good,
Yeah.
but it was 2 bad teams.
We have the best safety in the Big Ten.
If you lost, fire everybody.
If we lost, yes, it would have been everyone's name would have been called for firing had we lost that game.
So what happens if you lose to IU? Same thing?
Yeah. Similar doomsday scenario this weekend, but if we win, we're back.
What an existence.
Yeah.
You go to every Saturday. I mean, I guess that's true of Ohio State. That's true of a lot of programs, I guess. It's just different levels. But, yeah, it's like if we win, we're fucking awesome and we're back. And if we lose, fire everybody.
It's just different levels. Like for us, it's 6 wins is that line. For Ohio State, it's 12 wins. I don't know.
If we beat Penn State, we're in the playoff.
Yeah.
Right? If we beat Penn State, I'm talking national championship.
So if you beat Penn State but lose to Michigan,
because if we lose to Michigan,
and
it's
then
going to
play
be
Michigan again in the Big Ten
we
championship,
wouldn't play them in the Big Ten championship. That's the thing.
No.
Yeah, because it's still East-West. So if we beat Penn State, assuming we don't get tripped up like at Wisconsin the week after, Michigan State or whatever, even if we lose to Michigan, it's just going to be a repeat of last year where, like, if we've beaten Penn State and Notre Dame and our one loss was Michigan, at Michigan, and Michigan goes undefeated, wins the Big Ten, they're putting us at 4, right? They're putting us at 3.
Yeah,
We're getting in.
Yes.
So,
I guess it depends on the Pac-12 scenarios. But.
So if we beat Penn State, yes, I'm going to do exactly what you said. If we beat Penn State, I'm going to sit down in this chair and I'm going to say national championship Buckeyes. If we lose to Penn State, I'm going to say fire everybody.
Yeah, Ryan Day can't coach big game. Yeah, that's why college football is the best, man.
College sports rule
at every level. It's like this happens to every level of team.
Right.
But yeah, it was great to be back. I was happy to see the folks and
get the red carpet rolled out for you. Getting the suite set up.
Trying to talk us into going to the Rutgers Purdue game day after Georgetown, Providence.
We got to do that. I mean, I'm putting it in my calendar right now.
Yeah.
Those are 2 games that I got to be at. I've never been to the rack, and I've never been to the
man.
dunk. The dunk and the rack.
Yeah.
If you have a gym that has a name like that,
Oh yeah. It's like, but it's definitely like bonus points towards
that's
your
big time
your
bonus
fandom.
points. Oh, you never been to the dunk? You got to come to the dunk, man. They don't even call it the dunk anymore, right? It's like
Well, I think Dunkin' Donuts lost, or like
Yeah.
their deal ended.
but I'll always
Which
call
the
it
rack
dunk.
is Jersey Mike's Arena,
Yeah.
which we've talked about. But
No, to hell with that. It's
Yeah,
the
no,
dunk and
nobody
it's the
says
rack. College hoops, secret scrimmages going on. Georgetown, speaking of Georgetown going to Providence, it might not be the blowout that I expect it to be. For the record, Providence people, I will be going to the Providence-Georgetown game. I will be cheering for Providence. I will join the chorus of boos for Cooley. But I got to say, man, Georgetown beating Wake Forest and Jaden Epps had 46 points. I think Georgetown has – I got to redo my AP poll. We got to redo that whole segment. I think Georgetown is in my top 10, and I think Jaden Epps is leading my National Player of the Year. That was Fanta broke this news, right?
Yeah.
Sources tell John Fanta that that Jaden Epps drops 46 in a secret scrimmage. I love secret scrimmage season. It is so fun to jump to conclusions. It is so fun to I as dumb as it is, and as much as this shit doesn't matter, because I remember like doing scrimmages when I was at Ohio State, and I've seen them in person where like you're tweaking stuff, and like you don't go into secret scrimmages saying it's very important that we win this game. You're going into it saying, I think maybe we might try to throw a 1-3-1 zone out there at times this season. So let's try it in the scrimmage and see how it goes. Oh, okay, didn't work. All right, maybe we're not going to use that at all this year. That's what these things are for, and I understand that rationally. But then now, all these years later, I sit down and hear about all these secret scrimmages going on, and I always jump to conclusions. I can never get them out of my head as the season progresses, and I think back on, it'll be like mid-February, and you tell me that like Colorado-Texas secret scrimmage, which by the way is one that I'm going to mention here in a second, if Colorado like kicked Texas's ass, and then I look up in like mid-January and Texas is in the top 10, some small part of me will always think back to that secret scrimmage when Colorado won by 40 or something. I love secret scrimmages so much. So Trilly Donovan, I saw put out the list, the secret scrimmage list, and here are the ones that I wrote down as being of note. Alabama scrimmages, TCU, Arizona State versus San Diego State. Arizona State going to be in the Barstool Invitational, by the way. Get your tickets now. November 8th, Wintrust Arena. This one's a big one. Baylor, Texas A&M. That one I have in bold and underline. I have Gonzaga, Baylor at bold and underline. Duke versus Villanova. Florida Atlantic versus North Carolina. UConn versus Virginia. Texas versus Colorado. So those last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Baylor A&M, Gonzaga, Baylor, Duke, Villanova, FAU, North Carolina, UConn, Virginia, and Texas, Colorado. I would say those are the 6 that I have most circled and underlined, and however else you want to emphasize it. As like, I'm definitely going to be drawing some conclusions from these games. Creighton plays Iowa State. Iowa State also plays Northwestern. It says Buckeyes play Dayton, which if Dayton wins, God, be prepared for that one. Like if Dayton.
Fire everybody.
Yeah, I mean, like Holt could go into that scrimmage and be like, don't fire everybody, but Holt could go into that scrimmage and be like, listen, we're all going to shoot with our left hands today. We're just going to develop our left hand. That's the whole point of the scrimmage. And then we lose on a last-second shot in triple overtime, and every single Dayton person, Dukes is going to be retweeting that like a motherfucker. Like, Dayton beat Ohio State. Oh, my God. Suck it, Buckeyes.
I have a hypothetical.
Go ahead.
If you obviously have a large following, especially in the Ohio State scene. If you went to that secret scrimmage, or in air quotes maybe covered that secret scrimmage, what's the biggest lie you think you could get away with in reporting on what happened in that secret scrimmage that somebody would actually report on, as sources say?
A guy looks like a first-round pick. If I said Scotty Middleton played like a first-round pick, because there's really no way to fact check that, or it's just very opinion-based. But if I'm like there were a lot of scouts in the gym or something, like, if it was something like that. But you're saying, like, could I report
that somebody scored 60 points?
Yeah.
Because there's no way to, there's no books to cross-check this. You could say somebody had 50 rebounds.
Yeah, that's a great point. Which, by the way, this is how sports worked before television. Before, like,
they're just like Will Chamberlain.
Before 19, like, what if Wilt scored like 78?
They're just
And
like,
someone's
yeah,
like,
it's probably 100.
how many points did Will have? And it was like, I don't know, dude. It was a fucking lot. And then they go to the stat book, and it's just like a bunch of chicken scratch from the statistician.
He had 10 points.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're like, Paul, how many points did you have him down for? And he's like, Paul's like, I don't fuck, dude. I can't even read my own handwriting.
Like
I think it
100,
says-
probably.
Probably like 100. Dude, let's just say 100. Let's just say fucking 100. Who cares? No, should I go? Should I go to Dayton, Ohio State? And
I mean, it's a secret. You don't even have to go. You could just say you're there.
Great point, TJ. This is why I bring you along, dude. This is why you're on this show. I think that's why I love secret scrimmages so much, though, is because it's less about like what is being reported as happened. It's less about like what happened, I should say, and more about what is being reported and why it's being reported. Who is controlling the flow of information? Why is it? Why did John Fanta tweet that Jaden Epps had 46 points? There's a reason. There's a reason. Now, I'm not saying that John is a puppet. I'm not saying that he's, that Ed Cooley's, manipulating him or whatever. I'm just saying there's always, for secret scrimmages, that you're not supposed to know what's going on at these things. Information finds its way to the public, and why is that? Is all I'm saying. So that's why I'm fascinated with these. I like to see the story behind the story with these sorts of things. So Baylor A&M, these are the ones I'll probably talk about on the show. So lock in on these. Refresh your Twitter. Baylor A&M, Gonzaga Baylor, Duke Villanova, FAU Carolina, UConn Virginia, and Texas Colorado are the ones that I'm like, I need to know what happens behind these closed doors. But then, yeah, the rest of the list is Rutgers DePaul jumped out to me. That's going to be a big one. Old Big East battle, TJ. Maryland, Virginia. Miami versus Florida will be interesting. Michigan, Marquette, I'll also probably maybe bump up to like the draw conclusions thing. Like if Marquette blows out Michigan, I'm definitely going to talk about it. If Michigan wins, I will not mention it at all. So there's that. But I'm fired up for secret scrimmage season. What else is going on? Did you see this Shams profile in New York Magazine?
No.
You know Shams, right? Woj and Shams,
yeah.
the two. The
big two.
The two. I can't do it, man. Like I got to do something. Something's got to give with me and my feelings on Woj and Shams and these insiders, because I saw this article making the rounds. I clicked on it and I read it. I had to pause reading the article like 5 different times because I'm just like shaking. I'm shaking with anger. I'm just like, he cannot keep getting away with this. So here are the highlights. The lowlights, I should say. Shams in this, he does a profile for New York Magazine. He's 29 years old. This man is 29 years old and is basically just pissing his entire life away, trying to suck off agents and play and front office execs so he can tweet fucking news 10 seconds before the news would have come out anyway in an official capacity. It said that he averages 18 hours of screen time per day on his phone. 18 hours. There are 24 hours in a day. He spends 18 hours in front of his phone. He went on a vacation, according to this profile, and was sitting poolside and trying to relax and not be on his phone, and he averaged 12. He said if he can get it down to 12 hours a day, that feels like he really relaxed and he did a detox. There's a segment that says at one point, Sharania, is that how you say his last name, set down a piece of toast to type out a text with his right pinky to avoid smearing the screen with the strawberry jam on his thumb. Quote, I didn't even realize I was doing that, he said when he pointed it out. I'll do anything to get the text off. I've used my nose before. And you read this, and I'm not even coming at it from an angle of like protect journalism, because there's some like journalist types that hate Woj and Shams because they're just like perverting their profession. I don't even care about that part. I really don't. I care about it as more of like from a basketball standpoint, that these bozos do not give a shit about the sport. They care about themselves and themselves only. And the NBA has let these fucking dorks hijack their sport and control fucking everything. I don't understand it. I'll never understand it. You're reading this profile and you're like, this is the guy that you're letting, this is the guy, him and Woj are the guys that like front office execs are scared of. And that no one wants to cross in this business. It doesn't make a lick of sense. Jerry Colangelo says he was calling all the time, like nonstop, to get any little morsel of information. He'll text you 20 times in an hour to a point where he wears guys down, and you just want him to fucking leave you alone, is what Jared Colangelo says about Shams.
Jesus.
There's also another part in there where he says that Shams and Woj will undermine. They'll basically like take money out of players' pockets because they will. They'll talk to GMs and say like the player doesn't really have any other offers anywhere else, so be sure to not. You're bidding against yourself basically. So don't, on like if a team's trying to sign a free agent, like don't offer him too much money because he doesn't really have a great offer anywhere else. And they will find that information out, share it with the team, so that way the players get paid less, and that way the team's in a better spot. So that way the team in the future will give them more scoops. They're weasels, they're rats. I don't understand why this goes on. I don't understand how to stop it either, TJ. It's a me problem at this point, I guess. But this is there's my rant. There's my Shams and Woj rant for now. Give me another month and a half, and I'll be back with another one. But I was reading this profile because I was going into it thinking maybe there's something about this guy that I don't know and like is a net positive for the sport. No, it was the exact opposite. I got even more mad than I hate him more now than I did when I first started reading it. And I hate Woj more than I hate Shams. So
yeah, I find it interesting that two things. One, that like it seems like every sport has these guys. Like baseball has Buster Olney and football has Schefter, but it seems like basketball's guys are the most. I don't know if it's like they're the most celebrity of the bunch. Like Woj and Shams are like they're one name guys. They're synonymous with the sport, and also like. I don't think it matters that it's about, like you said that they don't care about basketball. I think that they could be doing this about politics or
they could.
Reality TV or something. They just happen to have landed on basketball. That was like their easiest way in. I don't know what the difference is between basketball and the reporters in the other sports. That it seems
they're sickos. They're just sickos. They're just like they're just like sick in the head, and that's what I mean. If it was like that's why I wanted to read the profiles, like some sort of deal where. They think that somehow they are helping basketball, or I don't know. It's not. And they're wrong. They're both wrong all the time. They're wrong all the time, and they get treated like gospel. I don't understand. And as a reminder, I really didn't plan on going on the full rant. I just planned on laughing at the profile, but we're here now. As a reminder, every ounce of information, every single ounce, every fucking ounce of information that these guys share with the public would be made public anyway, and it does, and it comes out in an official capacity not long after they tweet it. They are famous for being 30 seconds ahead of people, and then the people that like don't hate them say, well, the information is money, and knowing that information is valuable, and being the first one. They don't make their companies any money either. That's the thing. Like they don't in this article they even pointed out that like Shams doesn't know how to write. They're not like. They don't have scoops. The whole point of a breaking news guy is that if I have a scoop, TJ, if I have a scoop with you right now that Zach Edey is out for the year for Purdue, say, and I have this information, right? And I'm sitting on this. I don't know why I picked that. Knock on wood. That was stupid of me. That was unfair. I'm sorry, Purdue fans, but we're here now. I'm going to roll with it. If I know, and I'm the only person on planet Earth that knows that Zach Edey is not going to play for Purdue, I take this information, I go to my company that I work for, I share it, we share it behind closed doors with Barstool. We build out like a way to get people, like you write a long article about it. You have like, we have graphics ready. We have like, I tell Jake Marsh and he puts out like what this means for college basketball. And I tell Rico and he immediately shares the news with all the coaches that he knows. And then I look at him like, Rico, why would you do that? And he's like, sorry, bro. Power broker. Had to do it. But that's the point of knowing the information is like keeping it within your walls, building a strategy, and then disseminating the information in a profitable manner, right? These guys don't do that. They like Woj putting out like this seventh man just signed an extension. He tweets it out. The team itself tweets it out 30 seconds later. He's not driving clicks to ESPN per se, like he's not like they don't have like scoops that like make them money. It's just like a whole prestige thing. Literally, the only reason they pay them all this money is because these publications value the Athletic, where Shams work, and ESPN, where Woj work. They value like the prestige of having their name on the ticker of the breaking news. But they're bleeding money paying these guys. Yeah. They don't get their money back at all, and that fucking frustrates me too because. Like every time I do this rant, there's always somebody that's like, well, dude, they're you hate them all you want, dude. They're bringing in all sorts of fat stacks for their companies. They're not. They're costing the money.
They're collecting fat stacks from the companies. They're not. Yeah, they're not like. But the news would have come out 1 minute later had Shams not tweeted it.
Right. But for some reason, ESPN and basically every media person, every media company puts a value on this just from a prestige standpoint.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why they do that. And I want it all to end. And I went off this ride. And reading Shams' profile about how he's like, yeah, I'm 29 years old. I should be out like living my life and building relationships with actual human beings and smelling flowers. Just doing real life shit. And I spend 18 hours a day staring at my phone. I don't know. Fired me up. Any other shout outs? I gotta get over it. I gotta get over it at some point.
You gotta have Shams or Woj on one of your shows and
I know.
And get this off to their face and see what they have to say about it, because I'm sure that they've gotten this from other people before. You're not the first person to complain about
Shams is
like gotcha breaking news media, but
Shams is way better than Woj. Shams is way better than Woj for what it's worth. Woj. If you're telling me I have to pick one to go away forever, I'm picking Woj every single time.
To go away.
Yeah, I'm like Woj, get the fuck out every single time.
It's it's almost better when it's a 29-year-old doing it versus whoever old Woj is as well. Like somebody that at least grew up in social media and understands like hopping on top of stuff. But yeah.
Well, I know too much about Woj. I know the strings that Woj pulls behind closed door. I know way too much about Woj and just
common enemy between you and Rico.
Yeah, getting just fucking trying to ruin people's lives and shit. And it's he sucks. He sucks so bad. And I would me and Rico could bond over that.
Yeah.
Anyway, great profile, New York Magazine. Thank you so much for writing that. Anything else? Shout out Iowa women playing at Kinnick Stadium. That was cool. I watched a little bit of that. I'm actually, people call cap. People say people in the streets, they'll come up to me, they'll be like, Mark, cap, man.
Yeah.
That's cap. Is that what they say?
Yeah.
But I actually am excited about women's basketball this year. Women's college basketball. I don't know how much we'll talk about it on the show, but I'm going to be watching it.
Is LSU just going to dominate everybody?
I think so.
Is there
Paige,
Stanford is good.
Paige is back at
Paige
UConn,
is
right?
back.
Caitlin Clark is back. Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited for it. I really am. I watch it. I enjoy it. I just don't. If I'm talking about it, I promise you I was watching and I enjoyed it, and I'm not doing it for clout. I promise you. We will not be doing that on the show. But yeah, I thought that was really cool. The Iowa women, and on the heels of Nebraska volleyball. I like that they did that, and Caitlin Clark's gonna be fun to watch this year. I think that's it for me. Anybody else got anything?
Did you watch Dylan Dennis and Logan Paul? We talked about that in the last episode.
I lied to you. I told you I was going to follow it and then report back on it. I saw Logan Paul won, and I was like, all right, that's pretty much exactly what TJ told me would happen. Except he actually fought, though, Dennis.
He did Dennis show up. I think he threw 8 punches in 5 rounds total, and then he started shooting for takedowns, and then he tried to put Logan Paul in a guillotine, and then
it's a boxing match,
like
by the way.
500 security guards stormed into the ring, and then they called the fight off during the last round, and then Logan Paul called out Rey Mysterio in his post-fight interview.
Rey Mysterio?
Yeah, he was like, I'm going back to WWE. That's my main focus now. Rey Mysterio, I want that United States Championship. So, I guess that's what's next for Logan Paul.
My God.
Like I said, I had a fun time because everybody on Twitter was looking at one thing, and we all got to tweet about the same thing at the same time. So I enjoyed my time.
That's not a bad strategy though. If you're Dylan Dennis and you know you're going to lose the fight,
just try to cheating.
Yeah, to start cheating, and then say you would have kicked his ass, but security got in the way.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely worth the 6 months of build.
Definitely, man. That's awesome. Boxing. I do feel bad for boxing fans. Boxing, like the old school boxing people. Like who is it? Your grandpa or your uncle?
My grandpa.
Yeah, your grandpa who I feel bad, but what can you do? That's the world we live in. I think that's it. Thank you to Evan Miyakawa for popping on and talking to us today. Thank you to everybody watching and listening. College basketball's here. It's happening. Games don't tip off just yet, but we got AP poll, baby. I might do it again on Thursday. Thursday show. I might look back at the AP poll and give you more shit that I found wrong with the AP poll. That's assuming I don't come back with more of a Woj tangent. Yeah, but thank you to everybody listening, watching. Be sure to subscribe, tell your friends, all that good stuff. We're ramping up, man. We're ready for college basketball. I just as a quick thing before we go, little state of the program. Excuse me. We got the new office opening new studio opening next week. So we'll be doing shows out of there. But also, I've reiterated over and over again about this show that it was kind of thrown together when I got hired at Barstool and throughout the offseason and moving here and all that sort of thing. It's been I've enjoyed it, and I think we've done some great shows. But the bread and butter of why I'm here and why this show exists is college basketball. I have not done a college basketball season at Barstool. I joined the company, did some NCAA tournament coverage the best I could with like the circumstances of me not living in New York, but everything based out of New York, and I'm traveling to Ohio. It was like a very weird thing. I thought we did a great job given the circumstances, but I'm very, very fired up for this show to take off with college basketball. And if you're into college hoop, you've come to the right place. We're making it happen. So that's what we're going to do. And we have a preseason poll, and I'm going to go stare at this thing for the next 48 hours, and we'll be back on Thursday. See you guys.